NXT 2016. This is interviews, music reviews, and more. This is The Hotter Show.
What is up, everybody? We are rolling audio here today in episode 336 of The Hotter Show. I hope you guys are doing absolutely fantastic. Thank you so very much for tuning in and clicking that play button. We got a kick-ass episode for you here today, as I try to every single week right here on The Hotter Show. I am sitting down and having a chat with my old buddy, Luke Paron, who is, of course, the digital media creator for Impact Wrestling, and as well as a content creator and media creator. We have so much ground to cover, it's not even funny, so I'm going to keep this intro very compact. We talk for almost 2 hours about really what he's been up to the last few years, how he got started with Impact Wrestling, some of his content creation stuff that he's doing now with Luke and Friends, and kind of everything in between. A lot of really great conversation. Always enjoy getting to chat with Luke, and I'm glad we were able to reconnect here on the show, as it had been literally 4 years since the last time we spoke. And we basically start from where we left off with Luke last time and go all the way up to what he's doing now again with Luke and Friends. So a lot of fun. Hope you guys enjoy that. Before we jump in, I want to thank everybody for their support on last week's episode of the show, in which I sat down with my buddy Matt Lane for a wonderfully fun and cathartic episode, and I hope that everyone enjoyed that. And go check out Matt's new single 27. It is awesome, and catch him playing literally all over Ontario over the next few weeks. Check him out, Matt Lane, on Facebook for all the information you will need about him. But with that out of the way, we're ready to roll into my near 2-hour chat with my buddy Luke Paron. Let's get into it. We got my old buddy Luke Paron back here on The Hotter Show, first time in 4 years. A lot to catch up on. Luke, what's going on, buddy? It is good to talk to you.
Hey, yeah, thanks for having me on. It's 4 years. Wow, I haven't really counted or thought about it like that, but yeah, I've done a ton since we last talked, and I think there's stuff I mentioned on our last campaign or our last taping that were kind of upcoming projects and stuff I wanted to do that I have done since then. And then I've kind of completely shifted, focuses. And so, yeah, a ton of stuff to go through, but it's been quite the character evolution for myself, and to see how much growth you've had with this production, this podcast. So, yeah, I'm hyped to get into it.
Yeah, man. I mean, first and foremost, like when I was kind of chuckling to myself because when I went back to look at the last conversation we had, we didn't spend as much time on the media side of things as I would have liked, only because that was something that, like, you were really just, like, I think Paron Media had literally started up like a month beforehand, if I'm not mistaken.
Yeah, I'd only recently started taking it seriously, and even then too, I didn't have much to show for it other than just saying what I wanted to do with it and some miscellaneous photographs. But eventually that did, span and take off and all that, which was awesome. So,
well, that's it. And looking at kind of in the grand scheme of things, I mean, first and foremost, something that I thought was super cool that you were doing, I guess not super long ago, but in the last 2 years, it might as well have been 10 years ago, right? With how everything has gone, you really started pushing into the YouTube world a little more, kind of right around that. Like, you were always, like, even looking back 3 years, you were doing stuff on YouTube, obviously, and the video content, and you were doing stuff with Shepard as well, which I think when we spoke, you were getting ready to go and join the Shepard crew.
Yes, and I did 2 campaigns with Shepard since then, a 1-monther in Nicaragua and then a 3-monther in the Liberian Ocean, or the coast of Liberia. There's no ocean called the Liberian Ocean, but in the ocean off the coast of Liberia, and that was for 3 months living on a boat, which was hectic.
But I mean, I can remember when I think I tried your message, and I was like, so how's it going? Like, because like you had like limited connectivity or something, if I can remember correctly. And
in the Nicaragua campaign, especially, yeah. Luckily, when I was working on the boat, because I was media, I was one of the few crew members who was allowed full-time internet access, which I did abuse a little bit to watch television and whatnot on occasion. But no one seemed to mind, because they'd be like, "Hey, can you download a show for me quickly?" And I was like, "Sure."
It's one of those things where it's like when you're out there doing that and you're in the thick of it, so to speak, it's like you need those comforts, right?
Yeah, yeah. But luckily, when I was on the boat, we had like a hard drive with like something like 4 terabytes worth of like films on it and TV. So we always had something to watch, which was nice.
So how was that whole experience being on the Sea Shepherd crew?
It was, every day I kind of wish I was there. Don't get me wrong. I love what I'm doing now. And they just emailed me last week and they offered me, they said in an extremely rare occurrence, they said, "Hey, we have 4 campaigns we want you on. You can pick whichever one you want to go on. And, it's up to you." And I was like, holy shit. Usually they just say, "Hey, here's our opening 2 weeks, go." But like, so yeah, the first campaign in Nicaragua was awesome. That was a turtle defense campaign, which was for anyone who doesn't know, Sea Shepherd is direct action conservation, which is instead of protesting or petitions or raising awareness, we actually get out there, boots on the ground, and actively interfere in illegal whaling, fishing, poaching, whatever it may be, or habitat destruction. So the first one was turtle poaching, which was in Nicaragua, and every night poachers look for turtle eggs, which they sell as a delicacy for tourists who are unaware of how devastating it is to the habitats or to the turtle population, which are going extinct. But that was quite literally a race against poachers to find these turtle eggs and then bring them to a guarded, supervised hatchery. And while I was out on that campaign, a big thing that happened that I actually did a few podcasts about because everyone wanted to know about it after was we were actually attacked by a turtle poacher at knife/machete point, which was very insane. And that was pretty crazy because that was just 6 guys out there. Well, no, it's not 6 guys. So it was actually more women than men, but 6 of us folks. And so that was, and we had no protection, no nothing. But then my second campaign in Liberia, that was just tremendous. So I was on the Bob Barker, which is a very large vessel. And we worked directly with the Liberian Coast Guard to actively intervene in illegal fishing operations. So we would basically find suspicious fishing vessels or anything that fit the sort of telltale points of this is not a legitimate operation. And we would investigate these boats. We had, because unlike Nicaragua, where it was just sort of like ragtag band of activists, we actually were working hand in hand with the Liberian Coast Guard. So we had the authority to board ships, conduct investigations and searches, supervise the operations of these vessels. And I got some of the best photographs of my career on that campaign, just to be out on the ocean. So much beautiful wildlife and really interesting people. There were people on the boat from all over the world. Obviously you see a lot of like gruesome stuff on illegal fishing boats. But so that was kind of mentally a strain. But it was awesome to be out there. And as hard as it was, just to be in the ocean with all these great people eating the best food I've ever had in my life, it was awesome.
That's fantastic. Well, and I mean, I can remember you uploading, photos and like some of the stuff you were taking, even just of like just the scenery was just so beautiful. Was there, aside from, like obviously you touched on some really fun kind of cool things that you were doing and obviously the important work that you were doing with Sea Shepherd, was there any moments where you were just kind of like looking out into the water, just like, yo, this is like something that's just like a once in a lifetime experience?
Yeah, I have an exact one, I'll tell you. So when we were in Liberia, for example, late, it's like you don't really know like true darkness until you're in the middle of the ocean, in the middle of night, when it's because there's no buildings, no source of light. And we're in a state called a dark ship, which is where all windows are closed on our boat. Every operating light is off so that our boat can't be seen because we want to, catch illegal operations in the act. So it's pitch black on the boat and you step outside and you see like billions of stars. And that's pretty incredible. But we found a target vessel to go investigate, and we deploy these little Zodiac boats, also in complete darkness, operating a massive crane to put these boats into the water, then descend down the side of a ship into these boats. So that was pretty insane. But anyways, there's this, I believe it's like an algae or something that when it's stirred up in the water, it glows a greenish blue. So we're like speeding towards the target vessel, and our boat is kicking up all this froth and wake, but it's all glowing blue. And I'm looking around me, and we got flying fish jumping out, and they're all surrounded by this glowing algae. And I'm like, holy shit, this is insane. And another time was, I don't know how our captain saw it, but from the bridge, again, late at night, pitch black, he could see the outlines of dolphins jumping, but they were all surrounded by that glowing water. So like that is an insane sight to see, basically glow in the dark dolphins under a billion stars. And plus, you know, you don't really see the true magnitude of stars until you're like out in the wilderness where there's no light pollution. So imagine there's zero light pollution. It's like, holy shit. So from an astronomy level, it was overwhelming. From a nature level, it was overwhelming. From a sense of objective, it was overwhelming. And purpose, you're like, oh, I'm really doing it right now. Like I'm really living life.
Especially, you know, coming from Bowmanville, where, you know, it's a small town, but I mean, you know, there's always lights, there's always light pollution and noise. Like, and we're not even talking about like going like up north from us. It's like, we're talking literally real stars, real darkness. Like, it would be just an incredible experience, I'm sure.
Yeah, I loved every second of it. So
that's awesome. So once you got back from that, you really started to transition into doing kind of really pushing the media stuff forward a little bit more. What was kind of some of the stuff you were working on kind of after your that second trip there?
Well, I think once I got back from Sea Shepherd, I had less of a I wasn't focusing as much on the creative objectives. I was like, okay, I love doing that, but it's I need a way to financially sustain myself. So I did a lot of building my reel and messaging anyone I knew who ran a business or had something to promote, saying like, hey, this is what I do. I'll shoot anything. I can make you look, you know, so good. Any sort of promotional content you need. I did a piece I was proud of. It was a 60-second TV spot for a really great company called Immigration Terminal that just did immigration work. And that was awesome to do with them. And they actually never ended up airing the commercial, unfortunately, just because it was shot with a bunch of staff that then later didn't work there anymore. But by the time they wanted to air it, and they ended up remodeling the office. And so now nothing in the video was current or up to date anymore. So it never saw the light of day, unfortunately. But then I did a lot of, mainly building my reel with animal activism stuff. But when I was in Liberia, I was watching wrestling when I was on the boat, and I was thinking to myself how much I sort of missed acting, because I used to do a lot of acting for community theater and stuff like that. And I was like, man, I really miss acting, but I do not want to do it again because I hate the rehearsal times and I hate driving to Toronto for a literally 45-second audition. And I hated all the sort of practicalities that came along with acting, but I still wanted to do it. And I was like, you know, maybe I'll train as a wrestler when I get home, because I know we have a great wrestling gym in Toronto called Battle Arts, run by Anthony Corelli, the former Santino Marella. And I was like, you know, maybe I'll give that a go, because every time I go to Sea Shepherd Campaign too, I'm in the best shape of my life. I lose like a good amount of weight and I get really good into shape because it's always fully vegan meals, and I'm fully vegan anyway, but I eat like shit when I'm at home, like a lot of microwave meals and a lot of like Oreos or like dairy-free ice cream or pita bread and hummus sort of thing. But two professional chefs cooking you meals with whole foods and proper like fruit, vegetable, grains, and like who know what they're doing, cooking these awesome meals. The portions were always giant at Sea Shepherd Campaigns, but the food itself was so healthy and like awesome and filling. So I would always be at like a really nice healthy weight. And I thought, how can I maintain this when I get home? Because every time I come back from a Sea Shepherd campaign, I gain like 15 pounds.
Eating like vegan microwave burritos and like whatever,
and that's the thing.
know?
I get home and I'm like, yo, I haven't had pizza in like a month and a half.
Right,
like,
full thing of hummus.
So,
like just
yeah, you kind of having food like right there all the time. It's like a nonstop eating fest for me a lot of the time. So I was like, how can I stay into shape? So I started training and wrestling as well. And then through that, I was like, you know, I would love to photograph wrestling and do entrance videos and hype packages and promo pics. And then I did that, and I started training as a wrestler. And then COVID hit. So then I was like, okay, well, I'd only shot 2 wrestling shows at the time, both unpaid. One for Peterborough Wrestling, which ran one show before the pandemic happened, and then one for Battle Arts. And I was like, well, I can't shoot wrestling anymore. So then I transitioned to doing YouTube full time, which is a whole other story we can get into. But yeah, so when I got back from Sea Shepherd, it was mainly just building my reel and shooting as much as I could for any sort of jobs. And yeah, I had a great time with it. And I loved kind of just taking on anything because I was like, oh, I've never shot something like this before. This will be interesting. And then I would learn all these new skills, which I could then carry with me later. So.
Right. And that's what's fun sometimes about just kind of opening yourself up to new challenges and stuff. It's like, oh, I've never done that. Let's try it out. And it's so fun because I remember when I was randomly scrolling through social media one day, just doing my thing, and your name popped up, and I was like, oh, like what's Luke up to today? And I saw a picture of you posing in this outfit, and I was like, what is he doing? Like a photo? Like what's a photo shoot or what's going on? And then like I saw another picture, and it was you like in the ring, and I went, hold the phone.
Yeah.
What? Like, so I wasn't really aware of what you were doing, and being a big wrestling fan, I immediately got super excited and was like, holy cow. Like, I think I saw like Mav comment on something or whatever too. Yeah. And I was like, what? Like, you're doing wrestling? So I'm like, what? So like, walk me through the training in that a little bit. Like, was it what you expected? Because obviously for you being I think of you more of like a theater actor type, just because of how your performances are and everything.
Yeah.
Was it as fun as you thought it was going to be when you started?
Yeah, absolutely. I think the only few like negatives might have came just with the people that I happened to be training with at the time, and all lovely people, but just so I wanted to be a wrestler, and I watched at that time, I watched basically everything. I watched New Japan, AEW, WWE, every indie show I could. Occasionally I'd watch like AAA or CMLL, but very rarely with those two. But I try to consume as much wrestling as I could logically fit in my schedule. But I found some of the people there training seemed like they almost were more concerned with being famous than they were with being wrestlers. And I remember I once said to a guy, I was like, oh, you haven't checked out any AEW, have you? And he said, no, why would I watch AEW when WWE exists? And I was like, well, because if you want to be a professional chef, you shouldn't eat just at McDonald's. That's just my opinion.
Right.
So, or it's like if you want to be a professional carpenter and you're like, oh, but I've only ever trained in one type of wood. It's like, okay, but what if someone comes with mahogany one day and you only like, you've only ever done stained oak? Like,
you want to take in everything. Yeah. You can always learn stuff from other people who are doing it, even if you're, oh, I'm a WWE guy. But did you see that match on AEW the other night? That was really good.
Yeah, and it's totally fine if WWE is your favorite or AEW, because it's no secret, AEW is my favorite promotion. It's the one I watch the most. But the outright refusal to be like, why would I watch any other wrestling? It's like, well, because aren't you studying this art form?
Right.
So there were a few like comments like that from people I heard, and I was like, this is puzzling. Like that was, but
because at the end of the day, it is an art form. There's so much of an art that goes into professional wrestling, the sports side of things, where it's the athleticism, and then also there are times where you're full on acting. You are a character. Like you can't get that from just one type of wrestling.
And I think though too, this could be it too. Anthony Corelli makes no secrets about this. When he trains you battle arts, he's training you to go to an NXT tryout and excel at that and get hired at WWE. And because that's obviously where he was working for the majority of his popular career. So, and plus he works with WWE in some capacity, and so he knows if you go to. And plus, also he knows that most people, the average person, watches WWE primarily, and it's not realistic to expect everyone to be super well versed in every offshoot of wrestling and every promotion. But so Anthony knows that if you're training to be a wrestler, most of your dreams are to main event WrestleMania. So he's training you that WWE style. I shouldn't actually say that, no, because Anthony's a judo pro, and he very much will train you shoot style, like judo, wrestling, grappling, and all that. But he a lot of the people there, their dream is to be a WWE wrestler. So he'll really craft you and shape you to excel at that NXT tryout. But I think some kids get too caught up in that when it comes time to look for getting work on the indie shows, it's like they almost are thinking only about their NXT tryout. And I'm like, So and now that does make sense though, because WWE doesn't hire out of the indies anymore. They hire out of their tryouts or from athletes from like colleges. It was a big kind of controversy at WWE. Said we're not actually hiring ready-made indie wrestlers anymore. We're picking people who are athletic and have good look and good persona and training
People
them
they
to
can
wrestle.
train from the ground up.
Yeah, but
Right.
I think so just some of the mentality when I was training, a lot of those people had a very different angle or passion for a certain side of the industry than me, because I was so passionate about the indies. I was expecting to go in there and train, and we were all like, let's get indie bookings, let's wrestle every weekend. But some people were just like dead set on their NXT tryout. And I thought that was unrealistic at the time. But now that I see that WWE goes, no, we don't care if you're an indie pro or not. If you do good at the tryout, we'll hire you and craft you into what we want. It does make sense to me now. But anyway, but I did meet so the second episode of Luke and Friends will be out by the time this releases, I think. So the next guest on the show is Tempest, who is he was my first opponent and my only opponent, and he's also a very popular journalist and video personality at Wrestle Talk and Parts Fun Known. Me and him instantly clicked, because when we started training there, I was trying to find people to talk to New Japan about, because the G1 Climax was going on at the time, which is New Japan's big tournament. And I was like, did anyone watch the G1 Climax last night? And everyone was like, no, what's that? Or like, not everyone, but a lot of people were like, G1, what now? And I'm like, how does no one know this? And one guy, Tempest, was like, oh yeah, I saw the G1 Climax last night. And me and him instantly clicked. So we became great friends. So I think, the people that really helped me out there were a guy named Sway Archer, who's coming on the show. He's a gear maker and professional wrestler. He makes gear for NXT, AEW, WWE, Impact. He's a really talented guy. And then Ariana Grace, who currently is wrestling for NXT. And also she's the daughter of Anthony Corelli, Santina Morella. She was always really helping me out. And so I did have kind of a smaller circle when I was training, but everyone there was so awesome, super passionate. But was it as fun as I was expecting? Yeah, absolutely. It's every time I went, like I would get home and I'd be like, oh, that was so awesome. And just you go in the ring, and it really is kind of everything you dream about, the training, at least for me. I know a lot of people have had negative experiences in indie wrestling, more like in the actual world of it. Like once you start working in it, there is some kind of, negatives and like a darker side that people talk about often. But the training itself where I was awesome. Everyone was having a great time, super friendly. And it's just fun to go in the ring and throw down and practice,
Taking that first bump, how was that? Was it what you thought it was going to be?
It wasn't as bad as I thought, but I think it's because I'm a pretty brave guy. Like I'll do anything. And so, but what did shock me is the day after the first bump, you wake up and you're like, right, okay, why does it hurt 10 times worse now than it did yesterday? So here's a fun little fact for anyone thinking about training and wrestling. Your back will just hurt constantly from the day you start training until you retire. Your back will just hurt always. And it's normal. And I remember when COVID happened and I stopped training after my 2.5 months or whatever I had of training. After about a week, I was like, man, I feel great. And I felt great ever since. And then I went back to one training session when the gym's open for like a week just for fun. And I was like, oh yeah, there it is. So yeah, but the chops, okay, I don't know if you know who Karu is. He's an indie wrestler around here. Giant Kurdish man. Took a chop from him in my first training match. That shit fucking kills. But yeah, no, it's no, I don't think it's as bad. Honestly, I think the worst of it is running the ropes, because a lot of people think they're going to be these spongy, springy things. They're either real rope or
fucking cable,
steel cable. Yeah. So, and you have to like slam into them to really get that ricochet back forward. Or else that's why you see a lot with wrestlers who are really, really lightweight. Like I always notice, like when Alexa Bliss, for example, when she hits the ropes, often she doesn't get that kind of spring back. She almost has to kind of manually push herself forward. Whereas if you're a really heavy guy and you slam into those ropes, it does spring you back like kind of immediately. But you got to hit those things as if you're, if you're trying to attack them. But that hurts because you got these 3 steel cables going boom and pulling into your back. So that is probably the worst of it for me.
That's something that a good friend of mine who, again, pre-COVID and everything, did some training. I remember like after his first class, I was talking to him. I said, what, like, okay, it was fun, it was great, it's your dream, awesome, cool.
Mhm.
What hurt the most? What sucked the most that surprised you? And he was like, honestly, it was hitting the ropes.
Yeah.
And that's what his trainer said. He was like, this is the part that you're gonna assume it doesn't hurt, and it hurts. Like, he's like, eventually, your back builds up that callus, but that's after doing it for years, like, and it's like, he said, man, you never get used to that feeling. Like, it, when you're in the ring, obviously it's different, but he's like, when you're running those ropes for the first time, it's like, oh geez, like, this is not what I thought it was going to be.
Yeah. And they're actually not springy. Like, when people look at it, that's actually not them having give. It's you slamming into them really hard and pulling them back. It's not like they spring back. It's like you're pulling them back, and it sucks.
I mean, that's something we could probably talk about all night, kind of the behind the scenes stuff of the art form of professional wrestling. But what was so fun was, so when you did your first match, first off, walk us through that whole process. Where was it? Again, talk about your opponent and that, like, because I can just imagine, again, knowing what a big fan you are. How was that for you?
Yeah. Dude, it was awesome. So we were supposed to, me and Tempest, we're gonna, because we had that same shared passion for Japanese wrestling. We wanted to be a tag team really bad, and we had our whole tag team persona ready. We had our names picked out. We had our entrance music picked out. And then we knew, like, okay, basically, so Battle Arts has, for anyone listening to this who's like a wrestler thinking, this guy had a match after 2 months, it was a student showcase, okay? So it's not a real, I mean, we are still charging for tickets, but it's just like a family and friends invite thing. They're not advertising this like, come see this crazy wrestling show. It's like they say student showcase on the poster because we're students. So you can be in the student showcase even if you've had like a week of training, just as like a run-in spot or something. Everyone can be on the show. It's a student thing, so don't take it too seriously. But so we had like maybe 10 moves between us, me and Tempest. 10 moves each. So two guys who had like 4 years of training, they were going to lead us through this tag match. They were going to squash us. We were going to have this babyface victory. They were going to cheat or whatever. And so it's like an hour before the show, and they still haven't pulled up yet. And me and Tempest were like, these guys haven't arrived yet. Where are they? Like, we should start going through our match, right? Then it's like 45 minutes, still not there. 30 minutes till curtain. And we're like, okay, Anthony, if these guys don't show up, like, should we have a backup plan in place? And Anthony's like, how many moves do you guys know? And we were like, we gave him the list. I was like, we can do this, and this. And he's like, okay, start planning now. Have a singles match, 5 minutes. And I was like, okay. So we planned this match. We did every single last move we could think of. It took us to fill 5 minutes. We even small variations on moves, like little things. And we were like, okay, but luckily because we watched a lot of Japanese wrestling, there's little spots that you see in a lot of Japanese wrestling that aren't combat based, that can get pops out of the crowd, that they just don't do in WWE. WWE is very, walk you to the post, do this spot, walk you here, do this spot. But, so we did a lot of back and forth where of not actual combat. Like, we'd look at each other, we would square up, and then we go like back off, and the crowd would be like, oh,
crowd, almost like crowd work, right? Like you're doing this
or
for the sake of the crowd.
Tempest would go, he'd like shove me into the ropes. He'd go to chop me, and he'd give me a little tap on the chest. You see that a ton in AEW now because a lot of those guys come from Japan. So, but so we would do a lot of stuff like that. And we did a lot of like just scrapping, looking for a hold or stuff like that. So it was, luckily Tempest had a mask on too. So it was really easy for us to, if we forgot, for him to call the match from within the mask and you wouldn't be able to see. Except there's a great moment where I injure his leg by giving this little I forget the name of the move, but I pull it against the rope, and it's supposed to be this big leg injury, but we forgot about it, and he stopped selling it. And then a guy from the crowd called out, "Isn't this guy's leg supposed to be hurt?" And then immediately we fell back into it, and we were like, "Oh, damn, true." But luckily, Tempest was so awesome.
You're supposed to be selling the leg, bro.
Yeah, and it's a student showcase, so we were like, "Oh, true."
Right? Yeah.
But So anyways, because I have that theater background, I can cut like a really decent promo because I have that theater background. And a lot of people, it's the other way around. They're good athletes, good wrestlers, and they suck at acting, and they really have to study scripts and promo art form. For me, I've been monologuing since, ninth grade. So I remember in class we were doing monologues or promos, and Anthony gave us all this promo. A lot of people had to read off the script and stuff like that. But just because I have that, like, I had like 6 years of acting experience at the time, I could do it like once over on the script and have it. So I like got up and did it. And Anthony was like, okay, you should be like a manager or something. Cause like that was, you just know script work really well. So Tempest was like, okay, well, it makes sense for you to win so you can cut this promo after and offer us up to be a tag team. So I won the match with a swanton. And then while he was writhing around on the ground, I put him into this, like front face lock thing. Then I won. And then I cut this promo saying, man, I felt like you had me scouted and like you really knew my every move and we were really in sync with each other. I think there's a lot of tag teams around here, but not a lot of challengers. Let's team up, right? And so that was a big promo. And then we teamed up, we shook hands, and then COVID happened, and then we never wrestled ever again. So,
oh man, so there's a couple things I want to touch on there from what you said, but one thing I couldn't help but chuckle when it was like the variations of the 10 moves we know.
Yeah.
And, my dumbass is sitting here going, arm bar.
Yeah.
Cross arm bar, reverse arm bar.
But the thing is, we could name probably 1,000 moves, but it's weird because you look at a wrestling move and you go, oh, he does this, he does that. When you go to physically apply it to someone, you're like, wait, your arm's not moving this way.
What is this? Yeah.
Yeah. So that like, it's really crazy because like you can look at a move 1,000 times, you go to do it and you're like, oh, I thought I'd be able to move a lot easier this way. Or even something as simple as a hip toss, someone runs up to you, you link arms, you toss them over. Took me like 12 tries, I remember, to get a hip toss. Everyone else was getting it on the first or second try, but my arm just wouldn't link up with my opponent in training. And me and Tempest would always be training partners too. So I remember I'd like run up to him and our arms would just bump into each other and just go like that instead of linking up. So it's these little things that you think are going to be like, you look at it and you're like, oh, of course I could do that. And then you go to do it and you're like, oh, I'm not actually falling into this properly. Or like Anthony was teaching us this move, like he called it a twister, where, you lag lock someone with your legs while putting them in a front face lock and you kind of twist their torso. Trying to actually get both your legs where they're supposed to be for your arm to be able to reach around and it look proper. It takes a lot of finicking around. So that's why, and you don't want to do a match where you think you know the move good enough. You have to only do the moves you know you can do perfectly and safely. So yeah, and that's why you hear a lot of times, a lot of like veterans will be like, don't say you know how to take my finisher unless you actually know how. Because think of it, the pros too, they don't rehearse the match physically in ring. They get in the ring and they talk it through. They go, okay, we're going to do this, motion through that. They don't actually like rehearse it as like the way you would rehearse like a dance recital or something. They just talk it through and know it because they know how to do the moves, right? You don't need to, you already know how to do the move. So, but sometimes people will say, oh, yeah, I know how to take your finisher. But because finishers are kind of customized moves, you can't train for them the way you can train for other standardized moves. Like, you can train Canadian Destroyer because that's the same move. But if someone has a variation on it, you can't train for that because that's a personalized thing. So don't say, oh, I know how to take your finisher unless you actually do.
Yeah, you can't just walk up and be like, oh yeah, man, I just tucked my chin, I got it. Like, it's like,
yeah, because then it looks really bad. It makes you look bad. It makes the veteran look bad. So you have to be 1,000% sure you can do every move safely. So we only had 10 moves. We were 1,000% sure we could do perfectly safe.
And 7 of them were arm bars. No.
Yeah.
That's awesome though. Like it's something that I have so much respect for anybody who gets in there and does it, because I have such a respect for the art form of professional wrestling. And so now I got to ask, obviously the big C happened and the world changed and all that. Now, any desire to get back in there maybe at some point, or?
The Voros twins asked me that the other day, and then I was talking to Von Vertigo, and then he asked me the other day. Probably not, no, unless I lived really close to a school, because I work 9 to 5. I love the work I do. And then I do a lot of personal projects. and there's only so many hours in a day, and I don't like wrestling enough where I don't like being in the ring enough,
Right.
where I'm going to sacrifice, like, it's like a 5-hour ordeal, because it's like an hour to get there, then you train for 2.5 hours, and an hour back, and then 30 minutes give or take getting ready for class or getting ready for your driver, all that, and then plus I don't think there's if I did it, I probably wouldn't do it to get bookings. I would just do it recreationally, to stay in shape, to have fun in training. Because I'll give you an example. A lot of guys this weekend just did Ottawa, then they did a show in Barrie. Like, they did Ottawa Friday, Barrie Saturday, Toronto Sunday. I would not want to be doing that drive. I just don't love it enough to do that. And like, even if I was getting paid for it, I'd be like, no, I'd just rather stay home and read or write something or edit a video that I'm working on. So yeah, if I did get back into it, it would probably just be for general fitness and just for the fun of it all. But it's probably not going to be for a bit unless I move to Toronto or something, which I have no desire to live in a big city. So, but some wrestling schools are out in the country, which is really nice. Like Josh Alexander's school, Canadian Strong Style, which is closed now, I think, but that used to be, I think, kind of out in the countryside. But yeah, probably a no for now.
Right on. Well, I mean, it's something at least you can always say, hey, I did do it.
Yeah, and I have like a billion connections in wrestling now. So if I ever want to get back into the ring, I know, a bunch of people I would say, hey, yeah, come on down for a class. Or, you know where I think I would go, actually? I think I would go to, do you know Rip Impact, a local guy? He's got a school that he runs out of a little garage. It's just him, no big staff. It's not some state-of-the-art facility like Battle Arts. It's literally just Rip Impact with a ring in his garage and some buddies. I would like maybe a more informal thing like that. I think it'd be fun for me, because at Battle Arts, you got so many people training there because it's a state-of-the-art facility. So a lot of it's like waiting in line to do your move. And then, so whereas something like Rip Impact, I could just say, I'd like to learn something like this today. And I think that could just be really fun.
Get in there, work some stuff out, just doing it for the love of the art form of it, right?
Yeah. So, and he's at Hamilton Pro Wrestling is his school.
Right on. That's fantastic. Well, I mean, again, it's something that I think is so cool that you did that even once. Now, I got to ask, so what, first off, what was your, for those who don't know, what was your name and what was your gimmick before we move on here?
So the character was called Max Jaeger, and I don't know why I went with Max. It sounds kind of youthful and like, almost like when you think of guys like, I don't know, like cartoon good guys like Ben 10 or something, or like, it's one of those names where it's like Cody or like something kind of edgy like that, like Max. It just sounds like kind of hip and young and youthful. And I wanted to, like, I really liked Will Ospreay's style, and I worship Kota Ibushi. He's my favorite wrestler by a country mile. And I liked how Kota Ibushi and Will Ospreay at the time, their gimmicks were, and a lot of people told me this won't work on the indies because in the indies you need to be like instantly recognizable, right? And I think that is good advice. But if you look at guys like a lot of guys have really instantly identifiable gimmicks like Effie or Danhausen or Dalton Castle or even Sway Archer. Like, a lot of guys have gimmicks. You're like, oh, I can describe them real quick. Like, I know exactly their vibe. But I liked how Will Ospreay and Kota Ibushi and even like Sho and Yo from New Japan, their gimmicks were just like dashing young men who were passionate and they just loved to please the crowd and wanted to put a smile on your face. And they were almost like good guy comic book heroes. And I really like that. So, and Jaeger just came from Attack on Titan. I think it sounds kind of like, just the name too sounds kind of cruiserweight-ish. Max Jaeger. That doesn't sound like Walter. That's a very big evil guy name, right? Or even his gimmick change, Gunther. Yeah. So you've got like names like Butch or Big Cass, or like names that really fit the character, Vader, where I was like, Max Jaeger, you hear that and you just think of like almost like an anime protagonist or something like that. So I just wanted to do something like that, and I wore these bright pink camo pants, which were inspired by Hana Kimura. I think the group she was in, I think, was called the Tokyo Cyber Squad. And she wore these. I didn't want my pants to be camo, but I couldn't get custom gear done in time. But I thought I saw the Tokyo Cyber Squad Hana Kimura gear, and I was like, okay, that's cool. I think pink camo could work. And then I wore this pink flower kimono coming into the ring, and I had short hair that was kind of wavy on the top, and I thought that was really cool. And so yeah, just kind of this young anime protagonist who's kind of boyish. I didn't want him to be, because I think but I think if I ever were to wrestle again, I would really turn the theatrics like 1,000 degrees more. Because people said to me, like, dude, you can sing, you can dance, you can act. Put it in a gimmick. And so I think it'd probably be something Stephen King inspired. A lot of guys do like the preacher gimmick, like Bray Wyatt did it, and Isaiah Bronson from Battle Arts. He's got this sort of Bible Belt preacher-esque tone of voice thing. I could be really good at that because I played the Reverend in Footloose one time in high school. And I've always thought in another life, if I was born mega religious, I could have been one of the most like famous pastors ever, just because I can, when I played that role in Footloose, sure I was like, I can just go off and be like, this and that, and, you know, and really rile up people. And when I did my promo was just, I'm a good guy. I've got the spirit. And I was like, you know, it works, but I think I would just combine 12 Stephen King characters and put them into a gimmick. It would be my next big thing. Or I always thought too, if Tai Chi from New Japan already didn't do it, I would do a Phantom of the Opera gimmick.
That'd be you kill it at that too. I can totally see you doing that. That's awesome, man. Well, I mean, again, I'm happy you even got to experience that and got some training in, and you know, because it definitely, I think, probably helped you with what you're doing now. But before we get into that, so from the wrestling, you then transitioned into doing the YouTube stuff full time. And I mean, you did some really cool things. It basically, even like just like a year ago, you really started to kind of go nuts with you were doing, you know, like reactions to TV
that
shows.
That schedule was crazy.
Yeah, you were going crazy, and you did something that when I saw it, it boggled my mind. You did a full read through of Stephen King's 1408. And I mean, like, why would you do that? Like, obviously it's fun, and I say that tongue in cheek, but like, the amount of work that must have went into that one video, like, jeez.
Yeah, it was a lot. And I'll tell you what, for the longest time, it really pissed me off that I did do it, because it got no views for the longest time. But let me pull it up now. But I remember shooting it, and for months after, I was like, what a waste of my time. No one cares. No one watched this. You know, this video is doing nothing. And I put so much time and effort into it, and it really did kind of grind my gears, because I was like, that was like an ungodly amount of preparation that I'll never get back. And then one day I just looked, and it got 1,000 views overnight. And I was like, whoa. That video's gone up to, let's take a look here. 23,000 views. And that to this day is my second highest earning video. And I was like, holy shit, maybe it was worth it. So I'm just so glad that paid off. So if we look at my top videos in the last 28 days, my number one video is how to get Audible audiobooks for free, which is, I'm glad it's a top earning video, because I think, you know, a lot of people want to get into audiobooks, but Audible is like quite expensive. So, but then my second most viewed video in the last 28 days is the 1408 full read through. So those two are always going to stay on top. And those still average about 3,000 views a month. And then immediately after that, everything else gets like 300 views a month. So yeah, I just did that because I was like, 1408 is so awesome. I want to get into reading audiobooks. And I think it's one of the most accessible Stephen King stories, because a lot of his books aren't super scary. I think he's actually quite a weak horror author, but he's an incredibly strong character and story and plot author. But 1408 is one of the few books that really is like, this is actually quite scary. So I thought it'd be a great book that would be accessible to people. So that's why I picked that one. I just went for it, and I was like, and I'm pretty sure it is illegal. You know, I have no license to be giving out an unlicensed audiobook recording.
Like, I was like, that's gotta be like,
you know, it's definitely illegal, but you know, it's up there. And I think if they ever do track me down and try to, you know, I don't know, I think they would. I know a lot of people that have done Stephen King projects unlicensed, and the worst that happens, they just get a cease and desist. So if I'm asked to take it down, I will. But this is basically incriminating evidence, me saying that I'm aware that it's not legal. But I don't know. It's not the end of the world. You go to a library, you can get the audiobook for free. So it's like, I'm just trying to help people out here.
Exactly. And I mean, it's been up for a year at this point. Like, is anything going to happen to it? Probably
but
not.
I know a guy that is doing a Dark Tower audio drama. And for those who don't know, Dark Tower is Stephen King's massive fantasy epic. And he was getting a lot of publicity on it. And he had a full cast for this thing. And I was like, dude, you're getting almost too much publicity. This is going to get canceled. Lo and behold, he got an email from the Stephen King offices and they were like, you have to stop. And they said the reason you have to stop is because Dark Tower is something that's actively in development and studios have rights to and stuff like that. And if it was some property like, let's say, Needful Things, like a really obscure Stephen King book that's not in production right now, no remakes are getting made, no companies own the rights to a screenplay of it or anything like that. So I don't think they would care, but Amazon currently owns the rights to Dark Tower, even though they canceled the first. So they were going to do a TV show and it got canceled, but they still own the rights to it. And I am praying that Netflix buys the rights and they do a Dark Tower TV show by the guy who did Haunting of Hill House and
dude, that would be,
what's that new series he just did, Midnight Mass, which is like, so that guy's a massive Stephen King fan, and people call Midnight Mass the greatest Stephen King movie ever written that's not based on a Stephen King book because it's like it feels so flawlessly like Stephen King. And if you watch his work, there's Dark Tower references in everything he makes. So I would love for him to do that. But anyway, so yeah, a lot of Stephen King projects happen that are unlicensed that do get taken down, but this wasn't like some big thing. It's just me reading, so I don't think anyone's going to care.
Yeah, and that's the thing. Like when you're doing a project like that, like the second you started saying that, I was like, ooh, like I could see why that would be, that's a little different than just, oh, it's me on my YouTube reading this. Like,
yeah,
there's a big difference. But I mean, that's cool though that they were going to do that because that's such a cool world and a cool story. And I know that you're a big, you have your massive collection of Stephen King books and that. And so it was cool to see you get into that. Cause like, I know that, from us talking before, you wanted to get into the reading audiobooks and stuff like that. And I know you've done some writing as well.
Yeah.
So that was cool to see you do that. And I mean, I thought you did an amazing job on that.
Thank you. I wish I had a better mic at the time though, because there's a lot of plosive popping going on in that video in the first half, especially. So I might re-record with something more, I don't know. Someone asked me the other day to read Stephen King's Survivor Type, which is a first-person short story. I think that could be really cool. And for anyone who doesn't know, Survivor Type is a man who gets stranded on an island completely alone with no supplies while transporting drugs. And he has to survive piece by piece by eating small quantities of himself.
Jesus. Yeah, that would be really interesting to hear you.
And you could do some fun voice acting with it too, I think, because it's written first person, like from his perspective. So,
like, oh God, I got to eat my, like, it's just like,
yeah.
Well, and something else, like, obviously, we can sit here all night and talk about the reviews and things of that nature, but like doing the review content and things of that nature, like, you really had some great videos. Like I remember one I saw where you were talking about the Mandalorian bad CGI and like,
dude, I got so much backlash for that video too.
Oh, I can only
people fucking
imagine.
Hated me for it. They were like, this guy's like a Disney worshipper and like you're actually so in denial. And I do watch the episode back at times and I do think I just think long story short, I think, and I did play it up a bit to get because a YouTube video should be entertaining, and I did play it up a bit because I was like, if I give this calm, calculated, like, well, I didn't think it was that bad. It's like, okay, why do we care? But I was like, if I make it more of a rant style video, it could be more entertaining. But I was like, okay, this is actually not good for my channel analytics to get like 1,000 thumbs downs. But apparently it actually is good for your analytics to get 1,000 thumbs down. YouTube doesn't actually care about the thumb up or down. They just care about the interaction itself. So I was like, so I ended up privating that video because I was like, you know what, all these hate comments, all this dislikes, it can't be good for my channel. But it turned out it was good for my channel. So yeah, but yeah.
Well, that's the thing is sometimes it's almost like bad It's like the old saying with publicity, right? There's no such thing as
Yeah,
bad publicity.
exactly. And that's incredibly true in the content sphere. But if you care about being a good person, which a lot of creators don't, if you care about being a good person, there is such thing as bad publicity because, I remember, iDubbbz, if you know who, he's a very controversial YouTuber because he used to make really edgy content. He would say these horribly offensive things. And recently he went now he makes like 2 videos a year and they're just like documentaries about other content creators. And he just did this creator clash, this YouTuber boxing event, which was really successful and really awesome. But he went on the H3 podcast and Ethan said, you've really toned down your whole persona and the stuff you say. And iDubbbz was like, yeah, I think it was just, even though I was in my mid 20s at the time, you just grow up and you realize like people have an opinion of you outside of your videos. And it's easy to say, oh, fuck them. It doesn't matter, and be as edgy as you want. But you realize you get in the real world, that's really not how it works. And you interact with people on the day to day, try to make things as pleasant as you can. And I was like, that's so true, man. Cause you can, of course and when people say, oh, you can't say that, you shouldn't say that. It's like, I get that it's bad to say this, but people can make their own choices. If they want to be egregiously offensive, they have that right. But people are equally entitled to be like, oh, then you're just a fucking loser. So I think that's I just made a good point where he's like, I just grew up and I was like, you know what, being this stupid, crazy, controversial edgelord, like, so it's so childish. And at this point, I want people that interact in a day to day, not to think I'm this horrible monster. So I just gave it up and I was like, it's so true. So yeah, I try to have a decent persona, and like, so that rant video, I was like, I don't want people thinking I'm some sort of like crazy, like fanboy here defending Disney to my death. But, I didn't even say anything controversial or anything like that. I just said I thought the CGI was like decent. And that's all I said.
Yeah,
and people got so up in arms about it.
Like I didn't think it was that bad either. I was like, I thought it was all right. Like, like I remember seeing the videos of like, oh, well, I can do better CGI and all this stuff. And I'm like, okay, cool, right on. Like that's great. But like,
yeah,
like okay, cool. Let's just move on with life. Let's enjoy it. Let's enjoy what a cool
that video was so
was.
off brand, but I remember why I got in this. Bad publicity versus good publicity. Yeah. So there is bad publicity if you have a modicum of like self-respect, which a lot of content creators don't, but they want that money. So, go off, I guess. It's get your bag, as they say.
Oh yeah. Everyone's different, right? And I mean, even I've had some people say to me in the past, like, you don't really ask edgy questions to people. Like if you have someone who's in a band on and someone just left the band in a really kind of, oh, there's some dirt there. And I'm like, I don't want to talk about that. Like what? Like,
there's so many articles about that online probably anyway. It's like, I'm sure people would be pleasantly refreshed if you were like just having a normal conversation, like, oh, a new information about this person, not just the same thing. And even the Voros twins, they said, they told me that they were really, appreciative and grateful that so much of the interview was about wrestling and not just the Da Vinci TikTok. And that's what I wanted to do. I was like, I did so much research on them and I was like, okay, we know every possible thing about this Da Vinci TikTok. We know where it came from, what the reaction was, how they've adjusted to the fame. I was like, I am not asking them any of this. So for the rest of the interview, I asked them like 2 questions about their TikTok. And then I was like, okay, let's talk about wrestling. Let's talk about your favorite movies. Let's talk about, your favorite books and fun little questions for you. And I think people, appreciate the more laid back, casual, get to know you style interview because they're so rare. Because they get less clicks, because I'm sure if I said something really scandalous, like Da Vinci twins admit they're actually smart and not playing stupid characters, then you get 1,000 clicks. But I don't want to misrepresent them like that or anything like that. And plus, if people are taking the time to be on your show, unless they are someone who's like known for being controversial, like let's say you had like Ben Shapiro on, right? That's a guy that it wouldn't be out of line for you to kind of grill him, because that's the brand, right? Like he.
Right. Get him upset about something. Yeah.
The brand is he says controversial things and is a political commentator. But if you had, me on and you were like, I brought up this 2016 comment of yours where you said this in a YouTube video, I'd be like, oh, I thought you wanted to know about my job at Impact and my YouTube videos. Like,
right.
When people give you their time, you should be respectful of that, I think.
Oh, for sure. And I mean, that's something that I've always felt strongly about, where it's just like, oh, hey, well, if you're talking with someone and maybe the comment gets picked up and blah, 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 blah. And I'm like, but then you're known as the person who asked that question. And, It's
Yeah.
like don't get me wrong, like I think it's important sometimes to do things that you're maybe not comfortable with to push yourself. But like, if again, like you said, if someone's coming on and they're giving you their time, like regardless of who they are,
Yeah.
and you're sitting there and you're asking them things or talking about things maybe they're not super comfortable with, it's like, man, like, do we have to talk about this? Like, obviously there's
Yeah.
some stuff you gotta ask about and talk about, but
Hmm.
it's just like, hey, why can't we just talk about like something fun? Why do we got to talk about this thing I've already discussed? Or why do we
Hmm.
got to talk about a comment I made? Like, it's just like, man, like, there's so much negativity in the world as it is. Let's just have
Yeah.
fun,
And on the note too of like self-respect as like a creator and like an artist, I really held off on doing reaction videos for a long time because I did wrongly at the time think reaction videos were some sort of like lesser form of content and they had nothing to offer. But then I discovered two specific channels. Brandon Likes Movies, and I think Shan Reacts is the other one, or the guy's name is Shan, and he reacts. And they were giving really insightful, entertaining reactions, not just going, "Oh shit, that's crazy." And I was like, maybe reaction videos aren't all that bad. And I'll be honest, I did do them for the money at first because I was like, my book reviews aren't bringing a ton of money. Maybe I can build up an audience with these reaction videos who will discover my book content later, and I can build an audience for both. But I love watching TV. I love watching movies. Why not make some money off it? So I was like, Band of Brothers. That is a show that I've been recommended since the dawn of time. I'll check it out and I'll give my play-by-play on it because my brother loved Band of Brothers and he was away at university and he couldn't watch it with me. I was like, it would be fun for my brother to be able to watch these too. So I started with that, and by my third reaction video, the channel was already starting to blow up because reaction videos are so accessible, right? It's anyone can watch them who's seen the show. You click them, you're having a good time. It's almost like you're watching the show for the first time. Whereas a book review, if someone watches it, they have to have either read the book or have an interest in reading such a specific niche book. And there's not a lot of longevity to a book review. It's like, oh, was it good? Was it bad? Okay, awesome. But so with these reaction videos, I didn't real like there was I had grew such a lovely, strong community. People who were like war historians. I had veterans commenting on my Band of Brothers videos, saying, like how much they enjoyed them and stuff. And people who like old guys who were like, I was in the Vietnam War, that gun you're asking about, this is the history behind that. And like this whole community came from these Band of Brothers reaction videos. And I was like, oh damn, I guess there is more to the reaction genre than just acting foolish and watching content. So this is my semi-formal apology to reaction video guys for slandering you in the past and saying reaction videos were like low tier content. They're not at all, and they take so much work to edit. I had no idea. I always thought it'd be super quick, but you really gotta refine these down and cut them. And I ended up stopping reaction videos just because I filmed in my basement and it became such a hassle because I host a lot of people in my basement, a lot of friends, to take down my lights every time and set up the lights every time. And then to move my office around, like it just became so much. And it came to the point where I would look at a lighting tripod and I would just get pissed off because you'd set it up and then you'd go to sit down to watch the show. You'd trip over it and you'd be fucking pissed. Then you'd go to hit record. Oh, I forgot to charge my battery. So I got to wait 2 hours for my battery to charge. Like so much stuff just started happening. And these little inconveniences were becoming so annoying. And I hated it. But maybe I'll come back to reaction videos and I'll tell you why, because I've bought a bunch of new camera gear, cameras that don't have a time record limit, cameras that don't need to be charged. I got these little battery plug-in extensions for my camera. So that really eases the editing process. So maybe I'll come back to them because I did love the community that they drew. And every day I got comments saying, dude, you have 4 more episodes of The Pacific left to react to. Please react to them. Or you never uploaded your finale to the WandaVision reaction. And I was like, yeah, because I don't want to edit them because it pisses me off. And that's why I built this studio in my garage for Luke and friends as well, because I was like, I need a space I don't need to tear down and I don't need to set up. I build it once. I can invite the guests over. We sit down, hit record. Because the number one cause of burnout for me was the setup and tear down of the set. Every time I'd just be so annoyed with it.
Yeah, that's something that for, the setting up and stuff like that, it's no joke. Like having to worry about, I mean, like we were talking this before we jumped on, like I really would have loved to do this in person. And I was just like, man, like for the reality of me having someone in my place, which is, hey, like I live in a much better area now than I did a couple of years ago.
Mhm.
So, it would have been great, but I'm like, I'm going to have to set up all this stuff and there's reverberation I got to deal with. I'd have to have blankets all over the place. And it's just like,
Yeah.
man, like, is it really going to be worth it for, the hour and a half or whatever conversation, as fun as it would be? The burnout from that can be real. And the burnout from editing and, as someone who's been doing this for 6 years every week, basically, aside from a week here and there, like it can get to be a lot,
Yeah.
especially video. That's why I don't do video anymore. Even on my level, it was like, I don't want to deal with this anymore.
Yeah. It's so annoying.
That's it. Well, and so transitioning in from the YouTube stuff and things of that nature, you did a couple cool things. Obviously, like, I already mentioned the reading, and you did this really short, fun video that I really, really liked. And it was the reading of Night Gaunts by H.P. Lovecraft. Just a short
Yeah.
little, and I loved it because I know you have that voice in you and that theatrical, and it was just the short little 52-second video, black and white. It's just you. There's no mic on you or anything. It's just you reading this. And I was like, this is like, where has this been? This is awesome.
Yeah, I'm glad you pointed that one out. That's a very obscure video of mine. Didn't get a lot of views, but I was like, the HP Lovecraft content is great because it's all public domain. No one owns it. So you can legally sell print copies. You can legally sell and record audiobooks of any H.P. Lovecraft stuff. And my favorite part is you can legally adapt them into screenplays without paying for rights. So me and my brother are very interested in that aspect of them. But yeah, the H.P. Lovecraft omnibus that I have, it's called the Necronomicon. That thing is awesome. It's just packed to the brim. It's got almost all of his books. And H.P. Lovecraft, notorious racist and anti-Semite, unfortunately. But what's very interesting about his books is almost all of them, the theme is the fear of the other or fear of some sort of other species or race. And then you look into his real life and you're like, oh, horrible person, horrible. And not even like in like a canceling for like just being racist in the past. Like this guy like literally wrote like anti-black literature, but so it's so weird to see his books be almost woke in that sense. And it's not on a video, but I'm doing air quotes around this word woke. It's just a good description because they're almost like metaphorical warnings against being racist. And then you look at the man behind them. But yeah, I do love his work, and I think it's so eerie and creepy. And I was like, you know what, this would be great stuff to read because it's free and because it's short. So yeah, I would love to do it. And plus that was good stuff to put out on TikTok as well, because I was doing daily readings of Lord of the Rings on TikTok. And I was like, is there anything I can read in full in a single TikTok video? And I found Night Gaunts, and I was like, oh, perfect. And it's the first book in the entire collection of his work.
Well, that's what was fun too about the actual video itself. Like, it's just like you just open it up to the first page and start reading. And I was like, I thought visually that was such a cool video. I have to ask though, what were you just using like your camera's mic for that, or like it sounds like really, really clean?
No, I'm using this mic, the Rode NT1.
Okay.
Now there might be a bit of compression on it coming through this call, so I don't know how the audio sound is going to be too well, but this microphone can sound very, very good.
Yeah, because I was, I didn't know if you had, because like I was like, obviously like, there wasn't a microphone right in front of you, right in front of your face. So I was like, I didn't know what you were using for, but yeah, no, that was a video I really enjoyed. But going from that, you mentioned to me earlier that doing this kind of content and the reading and things of that nature actually kind of led into what you're doing now.
Yeah. And sorry, I'm just pulling up this Night Gaunts video because I want to see if I actually did shoot it on the NT1, because I'm looking at the thumbnail and this is actually one of my better thumbnails. Holy cow.
It's a good looking video. Like it's definitely one of my favorite videos that you did. It's really, it looks great. It sounds great. Like,
oh, you know what? I don't think I did use the NT1. I think I used the Rode NTG2 shotgun microphone pointed at me from a distance, or it's possible I was lip syncing because there's no mic in frame. So it either had to have been a shotgun mic or lip synced after the fact. That's really interesting.
If you're lip syncing that, you deserve an award because
you'd be amazed at how decent my lip syncing is. Because one time I shot like a podcast and my there was some sort of the video got lost or something like that, and I had to maybe it was a reaction video. The video asset got lost or destroyed or corrupted somehow, and I was like, well, I'm not reshooting the thing, and I'm not gonna get rid of this audio file. So I had to pretend I was reacting on the video because the audio was me reacting for the first time. But I was like, you know what? I'm just going to sneak in some reshoots of me saying this. So I've pulled off some sneaky moves like that in my past.
That's crazy. Yeah. Like I've done the gimmick before where it's like, you're having a two-way conversation with someone and your audio fucks up. So I have to like insert myself like, hey, so you mentioned blah, 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 blah. Like,
meanwhile, you filmed that like 4 days later.
Yeah. I've had to do that before. Or like, I am asking someone a question and I am having a bad day and I fumble over the question for 5 minutes. And I'll, you'll know, because my old producer used to make fun of me because I'd like, it doesn't happen a lot, but like I'd send them something and now I just let it ride. I'm like, whatever, like it is what it is. It's just me. But I'm like, hey, can you insert this at, 57 minutes or whatever? And it's like, did you seriously re-record yourself asking that question? I was like, yeah, because it's a sentence and it took me a minute to say it. So can you just,
I only had one thing I had to cut out of the Voros twins interview. They asked me who a friend I mentioned was earlier, and I misunderstood who they were talking about. And I go, wait, who? And they go, that person you said earlier. I was like, wait, which person are we talking about? And they're like, the one for this person. And I said the wrong person's name. And they're just like, oh, so I think they were like, he doesn't know what we're talking about. And I was like, I don't know what they're talking about. And then I watched the footage back and I messaged them. I was like, oh, that's who you were talking about. So I messaged them and I said, this is the answer to that question you're asking me. But it's like a very awkward 45 seconds. So I just cut it entirely from the clip.
There's nothing worse than when the guest you have on asks you something and you can't answer it or you don't understand the question. Like that, as much as it might suck if you ask a question and the guest will be like, sorry, I don't understand what you mean. Like, what do you mean? Like that sucks. But for me, when it's reversed, I feel like I'm the dumbest person in the world when someone will ask me a question. I'm like, it
catches you off guard. Your brain is processing everything they're saying and you're trying to work it into, okay, how should I ask the next question or how can I lead this in? Because I'm so focused on listening to them and I'm like hearing every piece of information they're saying to me. I'm like, okay, you're wrestling in Hungary. You're on vacation for 30 days because you want to be so attentive as a host so you can fire back a really relevant, good question. And then all of a sudden they're like, hey, what are you up to tomorrow? And you're like, wait, what was that?
What? Who?
Exactly. So anyways, what was the question you asked me? I've lost track of what we were saying here.
So going from obviously like doing the YouTube stuff and the reading and things of that nature, it actually kind of was responsible for you transitioning into the role you're doing now.
Yes. Okay. So I work at Impact Wrestling as a digital producer. And I remember I applied for that because I was like, okay, I'm not making enough money at YouTube. Like I was making like a decent amount of money and then plus my self-employed media work. I wasn't making a ton of money at YouTube and I wasn't making a ton of money at my self-employed jobs. So I was like, I might have to bite the bullet. It's been 3 years of the best years of my life, amazing gap year. So maybe I should get a degree or go to film school or something. And I was literally in the process of typing applications when I saw an opening at Impact Wrestling posted in a Facebook group for Toronto filmmakers who are just seeking new hires or crew members. And I saw this post and it was like editing degree not required and passion for wrestling not required, but extremely favorable. And I was like, you know what? Why not apply? And then my friend who actually was in the position who was leaving it, he messaged me and said, hey, I just left. I know they're trying to fill this position. You should apply. And I was like, oh, you know what? Why not? Before I apply to film schools. And I never, ever in my life, I always said, I'm never going to work for anyone. It's going to be a Luke Paron, just me. I was like, I never want to work on someone else's schedule. I never want to be on someone else's time. But I was already doing video editing for wrestling companies freelance. And I was like, well, I kind of rationalized it in my head by going like, well, it's already what I'm doing now, just for a lot more money and 9 to 5. And I was like, okay, am I willing to work 9 to 5 was basically the question. And I was like, it took me a while to think about. And I was like, you know what? No, because I would much rather work 9 to 5 than go to school 9 to 5 basically for 4 years, where I can work at Impact and make insane connections, do work I'm already doing, except on a consistent basis with benefits plan and and a proper, salary and stuff like that. And I was like, yeah, you know what? I'll apply. But I didn't have a resume. I didn't have like a CV. I didn't really know what to send. So I whipped up a reel of like my best wrestling edits that I had done and my best cinematography. And I sent it with a just kind of a paragraph about myself, not even in a PDF resume or anything like that. And I got an interview based on that. The first interview went great. It was with a really awesome guy. And then they said, okay, we'll let you know if there's a second interview. And they said, we want to interview you a second time. And I had only ever sent them my wrestling reel. And my wrestling reel is on a separate channel. It's not on the Luke Paron channel. It's on a channel called Paron Media. And I was like, okay. And I really cleaned up my socials too, because being a wrestling fan, you tweet a lot about wrestling and a lot of your opinions about wrestling. I was like, I need to go delete any sort of outlandish thing where I'm saying anything kind of out of pocket about a wrestler or a promotion. Because I was like, I want them to think that I'm like a nice, respectable guy, which I think I am.
But every once in a while you might be like,
Kenny Omega was the Impact Wrestling champion at the time, and I love Kenny Omega. I'm obsessed with him. I think he's a very handsome guy. So sometimes I would tweet some kind of funny things about how good looking he is and all that sort of thing. I was like, but you know what? If I'm in the running to be working in the same company as this guy, I probably shouldn't be saying stuff like that. It wasn't even anything inappropriate. It's just like, if I'm going to be meeting him or working with him or any other wrestler for that matter, shouldn't be saying stuff like that. Just say something professional. So I cleaned all that up, but I didn't think, I was like, I'm not going to touch anything on my personal YouTube channel. I act like a goofball on my YouTube channel, right? So I'm just like my authentic self on there, unfiltered. So I joined my second interview. My first interview was with a guy who just did media at Impact. My second interview was a guy who was like one of the higher ups at Anthem. And he's this like real educated businessman with like a ton of experience at huge companies. And I was real nervous. I made a big mistake of Googling him before. And I was like, okay, this guy's like legit, like, holy cow, this guy's scary. We join our meeting. First thing he says, he goes, Luke, before we start our interview, I just got to get something out of the way. I checked out your YouTube channel. And I'm like, oh fuck. I'm like, it's over. It's over. And he goes, your Dead Zone review? Loved it. What a book, eh? I'm like, yeah, The Dead Zone. What a amazing book. And he's like, that movie too with Martin Sheen. What a tremendous movie. I'm so glad that you're passionate about Stephen King. I checked out your YouTube videos. Great work. And I'm like, holy shit. Oh my God.
Kind of gone completely different.
Because when he said I checked out your YouTube channel, I was like, it's over. And then he just talked about Stephen King with me. And then he's like, I noticed you have a collection of Dune books in the background. You a big fan of the Dune series? I was like, yeah. So he talked about books for like 10 minutes. And then he's like, well, we better get this interview underway. And I was like, oh my God. So the interview went great. And they were super receptive. They knew that I said, my dream in life isn't to be, an assembly cut line editor for a TV show. My dream in life is to, be my own boss, to be a filmmaker, or work really somewhere creatively where I can really take the reins on something. And they were super receptive about it. And as you can see, I'm doing a lot more hands-on work at Impact now, photography and video production. I'm not just editing anymore. I really do a kind of a wide net of content there. And I love it. I love it. So my YouTube channel really helped out there because I think it gave me that nice link with my boss as a nice icebreaker. So
that's fantastic. And I mean, that was something else too, that harkening back to social media, where I'm scrolling through social media one day and it's like, oh, what's Luke up to? And then I see like you posted, I can't remember who it was a picture of, but I was like, oh, he must have been in an event. Was it Josh Alexander?
Josh Alexander for Peterborough Wrestling, probably.
Yes. Well, so it was after that. It was something he had done with Impact. And I saw that and I went, oh, he must have been in it. But then I'm like, well, wait a minute. he's with Impact right now. So then I like started clicking through, and I was like, holy shit, like Luke's like, when did this happen? Like, what the hell?
Yeah.
Which was so fun. And like, you know, now it's just like this such an awesome thing to see. Just as much as, yes, eventually you want to be able to kind of do more hands-on stuff. It's like, it's got to be cool to, you know, be such a wrestling fan. And now it's like, hey, you're actually working in the business doing something like that. That's got to be
very
cool.
Rarely does it sort of hit me like, oh, this is insane. Like a lot of things have happened where I just kind of shrug the shoulders and I'm like, just another day on the job. Like, I remember speaking in a Twitter space to Mickey James, just kind of shooting the shit back and forth. That was pretty cool, but I wasn't like really flabbergasted by or anything like that. And then all these wrestlers started following me, and that wasn't too shocking. Like I was expecting all that. Even meeting Jay White and Tomohiro Ishii when I was in New York for Rebellion, I thought like, of course, I was like so excited because I loved those guys, and you know, like, I'm a New Japan guy, right? And up until a year and a half ago, New Japan was it for me. Like they were my favorite wrestling company in the world. So to meet two of like the cornerstone guys at New Japan who were like world champion, like Jay White, like one of like the goat of all goats, I was like, oh, I'm gonna get to photograph Jay White. Then I met him. It went super smooth. I said, hey, can I grab a few photos of you for our Instagram? He was awesome to work with, super nice guy. And then same with Tomohiro Ishii. But then where it really hit me is when the mundane things happen. I remember I sat down beside Chris Sabin, TNA X Division legend, one of the greatest X Division wrestlers of all time, and one half the Motor City Machine Guns, one of the greatest TNA tag teams of all time. And I remember I sat beside Chris Sabin, and he looked at me. He goes, "You ever play this Wordle game?" I'm like, "Oh yeah." He goes, "I think I'll do today's right now." And we're in the locker room. The guy's in his gear after his match. And I'm like, yeah, you know, I'll do it too. So I'm sitting beside Chris Sabin. We're discussing the Wordle, trying to solve it together. We solved it. And I was like, okay, I better get back to work. I walk away, and I just kind of hit me. I was like, dude, like, what the fuck just happened?
I just did a Wordle with Chris Sabin. What the fuck?
Yeah, I'm like, so it's because when I'm in work mode, like photographing like these legends, I'm not really thinking about it like that. I'm like, I just got to take some pictures of the guy and make some cool pictures out of this, right? So you're in content mode, you're in professional mode. But when I kind of, I'm like, my camera's not in hand and I'm just sitting around, I'm just Luke at that point. I'm not, you know, I still carry myself professionally, but my mindset isn't the same. So to sit there, relax in a very casual setting, it's almost like, you know, you've met a lot of people through this and through your collaboration with like Mean Beard. Like, what's his name? Like, who's some of the bigger guys you've worked with?
So, owner of Mean Beard Barry's Talking Through Days Grace is definitely, I would say.
So let's say him, right? So
yeah.
that must have been really cool, but you know, it's in a work capacity. But if you were to sit down and just have like lunch with him, that would be the true shocking thing, right? Yeah. But when you're meeting him through a Mean Beard collaboration or something like a sponsorship, you're like, oh yeah, it's business. It's great to meet you. I'm really excited. But to do like a mundane activity, that's when it kind of hits you like, I've crossed a line here. I'm no longer like you're almost like in the in of it all, you know, like that. When I was like, wow, that is like an experience like so few people get to have, and yeah, like I'm not ashamed to be so excited about, because like a lot of people might be like, it's not like unprofessional, but like a lot of people forget, like, dude, it's okay to be like, dude, my job is so cool. So like, and especially because I've been a wrestling fan like all my life, right? So like, so when this stuff happens, I'm like, wow, like that is so like, look at me now. Like if I had told 10-year-old Luke this, well, 10-year-old Luke would have said, you watch TNA, what the hell are you thinking? But grown up Luke would be like, yeah, this is awesome. So yeah, I'm really proud of myself and everything that's worked out recently. So
that's so awesome, man. And I mean, you know, just get sentimental on you for a second. Like, you know, my joke is always the fact that, I remember you coming to Gigs Music when you were like 13 years old, and like seeing how far you've come and how much you're just kicking ass. It's just like, it's so awesome to see, man.
Thank you. Like, yeah. And even so think back to, you know, when I had to shoot a commercial in my 8th grade class, I did that little video at Gigs, right? Like, I don't even know, you know, that is all part of the journey of building to me getting to where I am today. Shooting that video with you, that's the first real advertisement I shot. I don't even know if it was an advertisement or just had to be a project about someone or something.
I think it was, if I remember correctly, because that just like triggered my brain. If I remember correctly, you had to do a project on a local business, but it couldn't be like an advertisement. It had to be like about the business and the people there, if I remember correctly.
Okay, so I don't know what the heck that would be relevant for in 8th grade, like, or what subject that could have been for. But I think there was a class just called media literacy, which I never knew what that meant until I say the word media literacy out loud now. They need to do a better job of teaching media literacy to young people, because a lot of people are illiterate when it comes to consuming media. But yeah, it's probably for media literacy. So yeah, like that was, I learned how to work with people in a professional setting, because that was the first time I'd ever shot like a business owner who wasn't like directly related to me. And I was like, oh, TJ lets me loiter in his store. He probably wouldn't mind if I shot some video. So like, yeah, it all is part of the process. And for anyone listening to this, just know that like whatever art form you're interested in, every single, let's say you're a painter, every painting you make, no matter how shit it is, or if it's completely off brand or it's a complete style you've never tried before, it's all relevant to leading you to where you're going to be. And I don't believe like everything happens for a reason. I actually detest that sort of like concept. If you believe that, that's like totally cool. But when I try to process it in my mind, I'm like, no, nothing happens for a reason. Because we make our own reasons, we make our own choices, we make our own moves in life. Everything in life is completely randomized, but what you do to set your own life into action is all relevant. So me choosing to shoot that video with you, that didn't happen for a reason. The reason was I went, oh yeah, I like doing videos, and I'll go shoot one with TJ. That was the reason right there. So, but it's all part of, basically I'm saying everything that happens is relevant in your life journey. So it's all part of the process. And like they say, there's a really good expression. I think there's 1,000 bad drawings in every pencil you have to get out. So so it's the same with video. You got to shoot 1,000 bad videos before the good ones come through, right? Or you have to flush all the negatives and all your mistakes. You have to get all the mistakes out of the way so you can learn from them all. So it was all, and it's like, sometimes I look back at videos, I'm like, wow, what a bad video. But then I think, you know, I bet you this video was so bad, I learned never to do that again. So it's all worth it. It's all worth it.
That's awesome. And I mean, that's a beautiful saying too. And I mean, that's something that I think any creator of any level of any type can relate to, that where it's just like, you know, basically it's even like the old saying, you know, you got to do things 1,000 times before you get good at it. Right. It's like learning a skill. Like you have to do that. And I mean, I think the stuff you're doing now, I always thought you were super talented, just for the record, but like the stuff you're doing now, I look at it and I'm just like, damn, like, you know, and now with what you're doing with Impact. And then obviously before we go, I got to make sure I ask about Luke and Friends. You've mentioned it a couple times here. Now dude, what you're doing,
we can take as long as you want.
Yeah. Like, let's get into that. Like, what kind of made you want to get into doing these video interviews with Luke and Friends?
Well, I remember when I started wrestling at Battle Arts and training. I just remember like meeting so many cool people, and I remember I met Anthony Corelli, and then when I met Anthony, I was like, okay, you're Santino Marella, a WWE wrestler, Intercontinental Champion, almost beat Daniel Bryan in Elimination Chamber. You are like a bona fide, like proper WWE star. And when I met him, it kind of clicked in my head just how easy it is to kind of work with who you want to work with and meet who you want to meet in a professional setting. I was like, you know, I just because, so sitting there shaking hands with Anthony Corelli, training with him, I'm like, okay, I've gotten so used to this already. This guy knows 1,000 people. All I got to do is ask if I want to, you know, if I say, hey, I would love to photograph so-and-so sometime. Could you put me in contact with him? And Anthony thought I was a really reputable guy. I showed him all my work. And so I said to him, I said, hey, I'd love to shoot some Battle Arts stuff sometime. He said, okay. And Battle Arts always has big name wrestlers come out at every student show. They have kind of a big name do a main event just to just as kind of something awesome to get the students like hyped up. So I remember one of the last matches Crime Time ever did together was a tag match at Battle Arts. Crime Time, another WWE legends. So Anthony has all these big names come through, and I was like, you know, I could probably work with some of these people, because like these are people I've known since I was a kid. I would love to kind of get into that sphere. And even Destiny Wrestling in Toronto, they are probably like the most hype like indie around here. And calling them an indie is almost like an oversimplification. Like they got professional video production. And the term indie wrestling nowadays is so almost like not outdated, because they are independent wrestling companies, but the video production, the budget, the stage production, the venues are selling out. Like GCW sold out the Hammerstein Ballroom, and that's an indie because they don't have a major distribution deal and are not owned by like a corporate entity. So the term indie nowadays is very, very loose, because an indie can be 10 people in a church basement, or it can be selling out the Hammerstein Ballroom. But Destiny Wrestling, Anthony worked with them all the time, and they would always have massive names on there, like Rey Mysterio, John Morrison, Rob Van Dam, huge names. And I was like, okay, I know Anthony can hook me up with this. So I messaged Anthony. I was like, hey, could you send my info to Destiny? He's like, I'll tell you right now, Destiny has a photographer already, but I'll send you stuff along the way. And I actually never ended up getting to work with Destiny, but I'm kind of going off on a semi-unrelated tangent here. But basically, I realized, like, you know what? I just send a lot of emails, and I can probably meet and talk to a lot of interesting people. And especially, and I hate to say this, but it does get a little bit easier once you have, because if people are listening to this, don't be discouraged by me saying this. It does get easier once you have a corporate affiliation. Like, so like when I got signed with Impact, when I got signed, I'm not a wrestler there. When I got hired at Impact, for the Anthem Christmas gift, they sent out these beautiful Impact track jackets. So when you got that on and you're conversing with wrestlers, they kind of already know you're legit.
Yeah.
But think about how many podcasts probably are bombarding emails a day to wrestlers. They can only do so many, and it's not a personal slight if they don't respond to your email. Just think about how busy a lot of these people are. But if you do have that affiliation with Impact or any sort of brand, they go, oh, okay, I know you're legit. They don't have to do the extra work of doing research, looking into who you are. They can just say, oh yeah, sure, let's do it. But long story short, I met Anthony Corelli. He was a bona fide star. I was like, okay, anything's possible at this point. And before I got into wrestling, my parents would always say, they would come because I'm self-employed, right? They would say, what do you do all day? Like, not in an offensive term, like I was sitting around all day. They were genuinely curious. Like, when you go down your computer all day, I know you don't have any videos to edit or photos to edit right now. What are you doing? And I say, Mom and Dad, basically all day, every day, all I do is research local businesses, local artists, local everyone. And I send out about 1,000 emails saying, hey, love your work. Hey, love your business. Would love to work with you sometime. Here's my reel. Let's put something together. I have gotten every opportunity in my life by doing that. And Sea Shepherd, for example, you have to be 18 to join Sea Shepherd. When I was 17, I emailed Sea Shepherd. I said, hey, I know I can't join right now. Here's my resume. Here's who I am. The day I turn 18, I'm going to remind you about this. But here's my stuff. And they emailed me back and they said, whoa, you're 17. Great work. Great application. We're glad to see you're interested in this so young. 18th birthday comes along. They give me a phone call and they say, hey, it's your birthday day, right? I'm like, yep. And they go, well, happy 18th birthday. You want to join Sea Shepherd? And I was like, yeah, I do. And then boom, I'm doing campaigns. So working with local businesses, I'm reaching out to activists. James Aspey, legendary vegan activist. I reached out to him and I said, hey, would love to work with you sometimes. And he's kind of got canceled recently for like some crypto scams. So apologies for bringing him up if anyone's like, oh, James Aspey, but whatever. Anyway, a legendary vegan activist. I emailed him and I was like, hey, would love to work with you sometime. So I knew I could apply that same logic to wrestling. So I was like, I would love to sit down and talk to some of these people just about like the crazy world of wrestling. So I did a test run with NXT superstar Ariana Grace before she got signed. She was, one of my closest pals at Battle Arts, and she shot a test episode with me in August of Luke and Friends. Didn't have a name at the time. We shot it in the ring at Battle Arts Academy, and it was so fucking bad. I remember watching it back, and I was like, okay, all this sucks, but now that I know what not to do. Fast forward a year, I'm like, I've got this studio built in my garage, and I send out emails to every wrestler I know. But I was like, I want to go beyond just wrestlers. I want to get content creators. So I got some TikTokers. And a lot of it is, and I'm sorry, I'm ranting so much information here and so much info. So I
this is good.
apologize.
I've wanted all this. So this is great.
So, okay. So, now, okay, anyone listening to this, a lot of people will tell you if you're in this field, it's not what you know, it's who you know. That is a big fucking lie, or not a lie, but a misconstruing of the truth. They say it's not what you know, it's who you know. This is true, but only in the sense that if you know certain people, you can get certain things. For example, Anthony Corelli of Battle Arts Academy, Santino Marella. But do you know how I got to know him? By inquiring about joining his wrestling school. It's not like I was just born knowing these people, right? I'll use another one. Cody Bowles, Juno Award-winning musician of Crown Lands. We grew up in the same town, but we never knew each other until a year ago. I knew Cody had a lot of the same interests as me. We followed each other on social media. I remember I picked up some really nice hardcover edition of this Tolkien book, and Cody messaged me and said, hey, awesome pickup. And I was like, oh, wow, Cody Bowles from Crown Lands messaging little old me. How interesting. But then it's as simple as starting a conversation. I said, oh, thanks so much. By the way, love what you're doing. Your art's really interesting. I would love to talk to you more about it sometime. We had lunch and talked about art. Turns out Cody's got so much going on. They have all these creative endeavors, and we just like linked up that way. And I'll give you another example here. Stratford actor Luke Humphrey, incredibly talented actor and television producer. I did not know this person, but I sent Luke Humphrey a DM on Instagram, and I said, hey, I know you're a film producer. We've never met, except for one time I asked for a picture with you when I bumped into you on the street one time because I was such a big fan. But I sent him a DM on Instagram, and I said, here's my reel. Here's my photography portfolio. I know you're producing a horror film. I would love to shoot on your film for free. And sometimes you got to take one for the team like that, guys, just to make the connections. Shooting for free, I know it's a big no-no, but it paid off in the long run because and Luke Humphrey goes, oh, wow, thanks for reaching out. Would love to have you on this film. When I'm on this film set, I meet this guy, Glenn Matthews, who, as well as being a director, is a producer at Impact. When he leaves his position at Impact, he messages me. So when people say it's not what you know, it's who you know, somewhat true, but you get to know these people by your own action, and none of it falls into your lap, right? So imagine if I didn't DM Luke Humphrey, right? And say, hey, I would love to work with you sometime. None of this this probably would have happened, but it would have taken a lot longer because I didn't take the initiative to put myself out there, guys. Right. You gotta put yourself out there. And every connection I have is just from me sending an email, sending a DM. So if you guys ever feel slighted, like, oh, they know this person or they got this connection because of who they knew, you get to know these people. That's how it happens, right? And everyone has the power in them to send that email. So anyway, I shot this. So do you have any questions or anything before I go on the 10th hour of this monologue?
I don't even need to be here. This is great. I love conversations like this. I really do.
Thank you. But so anyway, so Bianca Corelli, Ariana Grace, as they're known as NXT, was so gracious. I said, hey, could I shoot this interview with you? And she was like, yeah, I'd love to do it. Let's do it. So yeah, and it fucking sucked. The episode is horrible. I never uploaded it. I watched the footage back, but I kind of knew it was going to suck, and I wanted it to suck because if it went perfect, well, it wouldn't go perfect, but if it went good, I'd be content with it and go, oh, okay, that's good. I can start filming now. But it was horrible. I was like, okay, I thought the idea of shooting in a wrestling ring would be good. It looks bad. The lighting sucks. The sound quality sucks because I'm in an open gym. I got to get a studio. So it's October. I'm looking for studios, building a guest list of people I want to work with, right? The guest list is a lot of like people who aren't really known. Like it really took Luke and friends to like the literal friends, like the people who are just my literal friends through wrestling. Nothing wrong with that. But the original guest list only had 2 people that are still coming on: Tempest and Ariana Grace, who probably can't come on anymore because WWE has to sort their PR and all that. And so anyway, it's a big thing there. But October comes around, I start looking for a set. I find a set to build in January. I start to survey the space, get ready to build the set. I realize they got an industrial air conditioner that can't be turned off, and I would have to build 4 walls, completely insulated, soundproof roof, soundproof door. I was okay, this is going to cost way too much money. So I go back to ground one, looking for a set. While I'm looking for a set, I'm photographing, showing my face at every wrestling show I can. Okay. I'm going to Destiny shows, right? Luckily, Impact had a connection with Destiny. So they would sometimes shoot Impact digital matches, or there'd be some sort of Impact thing going on. So I could have a reason to be there just to shoot some Impact stuff. But I got to meet a lot of great guys there. And the Destiny team is awesome. They're really cool. But through Destiny, I met so many people. And Aiden Prince, who's coming on the podcast now, and Mike Bailey, who is probably... not a lot of people would tell you you're wrong if you said Mike Bailey was the best in-ring performer currently wrestling right now. Lucky for Mike Bailey that Kenny Omega and Kota Ibushi are out with injuries and all of that. But I think Mike Bailey is like the incredible. So meeting all these people, and I was like, okay, so I finally get this set built in beginning of April, maybe. And so and the space I ended up finding is my garage in my own home. So that's a nice little twist. I begged my parents. I was like, let me shoot in the garage. Let me shoot in the garage.
That was lucky.
Yeah. And they were like, no, you can't shoot in the garage. You can't shoot in the garage. And I finally dropped these detailed blueprints, a breakdown of how the whole thing would work, because we store a lot of stuff in our garage. I got 3 kayaks behind me as I'm filming this. So we had to build it in such a way that it was malleable and modular, so the garage could still be operational, but it still looks nice and beautiful and permanent. So I ended up building my garage, and I finally built up enough connections by sending emails, sending messages, showing my face a lot. And the only people I had to really not work to get, but step outside my comfort zone was the Voros twins, legendary TikTokers behind the Da Vinci meme. Because every wrestler I had met before or talked before, with Mike Bailey, Aiden Prince, Kobe Durst, Bhupinder Gujjar, a lot of people I had met before at shows. And going back to it's who you know. Yes, these are people I already knew, but I got to know them on my own will, my own initiative of going to shows and working shows. And someone asked me, said, how did you get involved in working wrestling shows? Sending an email to every wrestling promotion in Canada saying, here's my portfolio. I'll work for you for super cheap. That's how you get to know these people and get into wrestling. So, but also, don't price yourself where you're cheating other photographers out of work and stuff like that. But it's a fine balance. But anyways, so I met all these people. The only people I had to have a first time interaction with were the Voros twins. And I sent them a DM and I said, guys, don't try to, if anyone's like interested in starting like a show like this, don't try to, act all like buddy with these people, or like show them that you're a serious person, you mean business. I sent them a DM. I said, hey guys, I'm starting the show Luke and Friends. Here's some of my accolades: wrestling photographer, work at Impact, experienced photojournalist. I want to talk to creators about creating. Let me know if this is something you'd be interested in. Any dates, I can work around your dates. And what's your booking fee? What's your budget? Or what? I'll let you know my budget. Let's see if we can make something work. So it was as simple as approaching them, and they messaged me back instantly, and they're like, hey, we'd love to do it. And I was like, awesome. So yeah, and I finally got all these people booked and set built, and now we're here, and I've launched the first episode, and this has been like a year in the making since that first test taping with Ariana Grace. And the first episode is out. It's underperforming, but expectedly so, just because I haven't uploaded in so long. The YouTube algorithm forgot I existed, and they're like, oh, you're back? Maybe we'll show your video around. But once I get back into consistent uploads, the numbers will pump up again. But yeah, so we're finally here. And I just sat back the other day after the Voros twins interview. They said, oh, what are your plans for the rest of the day when we were done? And I was like, I didn't think that far ahead, because all I've been thinking about is building this studio for the last year. I've taped the first episode. I don't even know what I'm going to do now. So I just sat down and watched an episode of Planet Earth, and I was like, life is good.
That's so cool, man. And I mean, given with just looking at the roster that you uploaded of people that you're going to have on, it's so exciting to see. I mean, I'm looking forward to your chat with Cody. I'm such a big fan of Cody and the work that Crownlands has done. I mean, I have nothing but the utmost love and respect for the Crownlands crew, and I mean, there's going to be some good stuff coming from that, and I mean, I'm hyped. I think that judging from the Vorus twins interview, like, it was such a fun interview, and it was respectful. Again, you didn't just let's talk about TikTok for an hour. It's like you were it was
Which
a good
I
fun
get,
time.
but it's, I think you watch one interview like that and you've seen them all like that, you know, if they ask the same questions a lot of the time. So I was like, I need to give people a reason to watch this interview, which is why I ask very stupid questions like, what fictional characters do you relate to the most? So people can learn about them on a personal side, not just saying, what's it like being famous now?
Right. Let's learn about the people behind. And when, like, something I always say to people is like, when I have someone on, it's because I either have stuff I want to ask them that I would ask them while we were sitting and having a coffee.
Yeah.
Or I've heard them do other interviews, and with the utmost due respect to that interviewer, there was stuff that I was like, man, I really think that this question should have been asked because there's so much left on the table, or I want to know about this from this person. It's a selfish thing for me, you know. And like a creator I had on not that long ago, Jason Wilson from the Grey Rooms, which is my favorite podcast. Like when I had him on, we had fun. Both of us had kind of been drinking. So, you know, it was a little more loose, and like, I've gotten to know him now. Like, we're kind of buddies now, but like was still fanboying so much talking to him. Yeah. And I was just like asking him things I'm curious about. I forgot we were recording a podcast halfway through that interview. Like, I was like, oh yeah, we're recording a podcast. Like, just, that's the kind of content that excites me now. That's the kind of content I want to make. And yes, obviously doing a interview show as opposed to a podcast conversation, I do think there is a difference. So with
absolutely, and definitely, you're really going to see that with the Vorus twins. Was more of a structured interview because one, that was my first time speaking to them ever, other than a quick back and forth Twitter DM. And also, it was all the other guests are going to be in person in the studio. Which I'm very grateful for having, for, like, you know, Mike Bailey coming from Montreal, which especially with gas prices these days, like, I'm eternally grateful for that. Yeah, everyone's in person, and I've met everyone prior except for I've talked to Bhupinder Gujjar like once for like a split second. What was I talking about? Oh yeah, so structured interview with the Vorus twins because it was online, and I had booked them for an hour. These are very busy guys, you know, in the gym all day, wrestling, training, making TikToks, doing streaming. So these are busy guys, and I booked them for only an hour. So I had to keep it tight. But with the Tempest interview, this is a guy who's, you know, one of my best friends in wrestling. It's more of a free flow conversation where one question sort of gets the ball rolling. Because he's a journalist and media personality. So, for example, I say, what do you think it is about wrestling that kind of breeds this hyper contempt or need to be right about wrestling? And then we just went off for like 40 minutes on a single question. We're talking about Twitter and people, you know, telling you off on streams, and then they get the kind of the culture around wrestling online. And then me and Tempest switch over to a game where we do how well do you know your tag team partner. We have these whiteboards where we reveal our answers to questions that we think that they're going to say. We do a lot of fun with it. So I think the Cody interview is really going to surprise a lot of people because me and them, we're not going to talk too much about Crownlands for two reasons. The first being, if it's a Crownlands sort of affiliated interview, I think Universal has to be brought into the discussion and into the process because, you know, they're signed to Universal Music. And I was saying to Cody, I would love to have you on. And they were like, yeah, I'd love to be on, but it kind of has to be a line. If it's like a pure promoting a Crownlands album, we got to run it through Universal. And there might be like a booking fee, you know, affiliated with that, or some sort of contract thing. And I was like, okay, what if I just have you on as a general creative? And Cody's like, yeah, like that, we can go off with that. So, you know, and plus I don't want to talk all Crownlands without Kevin there either. It just doesn't make sense to be like, oh, because you're the vocal, you know, there's this stupid thing where people make the vocalist out to be the face of the band, where a band is, you know, Crownlands is a two-piece band where both these folks are doing a lot of work, right? So Cody is in my Dungeons and Dragons party, and we play Dungeons and Dragons all the time, my D&D group. So we see each other all the time, and me and Cody started off as just creatives wanting to get together to chat about our creative work, right? And then through that, we just have become, best friends, really. And so I think people are going to be surprised. We're going to be talking a lot of Tolkien, a lot of Lord of the Rings, a lot of movies, a lot of books and science fiction, because Cody has read like every Dune book, the entire Foundation series, an annual reader of like the Silmarillion. Cody's like a Tolkien scholar, right? So, and everyone knows I love Lord of the Rings. So me and Cody are going to have so much to talk about that is really going to show people the creative behind Crownlands. And it's not just going to be, what was the process going into your new album? What was the inspiration for this music video? So it's going to be really just about Cody as a creative and not their work in Crownlands. So I'm really excited for that. That'll be a lot of fun, I think.
And that's something like why I'm so excited about it, because the Cody that I knew back in 2013, they were
Heavy Earth era.
Yes. Yeah. I was so interested in them as a creator, and I was like, man, there's a lot going on there. Right. Like it's like the art form of it. And I'm just like, man, this is so cool. And then to see where they've done with them and Cody, to know that there's so much more behind that than just, hey, music is cool. Yes, music is really cool, but also, there's a lot of things.
I remember when the music video for their song Context Part 1 came out. It debuted on rollingstone.com, which was nuts as it is. And all these articles were calling it a Star Wars inspired music video. And I remember Cody and me were hanging out when it debuted, and we're reading the articles. And I look at Cody and I'm like, Cody, am I wrong in thinking that this is not a Star Wars inspired music video, but a Dune inspired music video? And this was before the movie Dune had come out. So Dune wasn't really in the pop culture zeitgeist yet. It was just a David Lynch Dune movie and then the books. And Cody's like, this is 1,000% Dune inspired. We're wearing still suits from the Dune books in the video. We're walking on sand dunes. And so Cody was like, me and them really bonded over the misrepresentation of Star Wars as Dune, because everyone, even when Dune came out, people were like, oh, this is just a Star Wars ripoff. And we were like, no, Dune came first. Star Wars is an homage to Dune. So it's fun to just nerd out with Cody about stuff like that. So I'm really excited for our interview, because we're going to be, or not even our interview, just our discussion, our chat, our hangout, whatever, because it's going to be a lot of talking about random sci-fi and all that stuff. So yeah, I'm hyped.
That's fantastic. I mean, if that's not the best kind of little blurb as to why people should tune into Luke and Friends, I don't know what is, because it's so going to be, I'm so excited for the project. The second that I can't remember if I saw it and messaged you, or we were already talking and you sent me the picture or something.
No, you were one of the first people I told, because I knew you have the Hotter Show. I was like, okay, this is a guy who knows what's up in this sort of sphere of discussion and podcast interview style content. So when my graphic designer sent me the logo, I immediately was like so excited. I was like, look at this. I knew I had to show you, because you kind of were in this world. I have no one else who's really in the podcast sphere. Right. And I do plan to release these on audio podcast form, but we'll see. I don't know how it all works yet. So,
well, if you ever need a hand with that, I have made a lot of mistakes in the last 6 years. So I can tell you what not to do.
Yeah, I have no clue how to, is uploading to Spotify just uploading a YouTube video? Is there some sort of verification process I got to go through? Yeah, I have a billion questions I can ask you off stream.
We'll talk about that. I have, that's the one thing, I can't tell you how to, make money off your podcasts and all that fun stuff and how to be famous, but I can tell you where to upload it so you can get it on Spotify and things of that nature.
Perfect.
Awesome. Well, Luke, it has been an absolute blast getting to catch up with you. I knew this was going to be just such a fun conversation, and it was. And I thank you so much for the time. Where can people find your content if they want to check it out?
So if you guys want to check out Luke and Friends, which I very much implore you to do so, because we're still finding our footing with, I had a professional analyst look at my, I said, why is this Luke and Friends video underperforming? Because when I was uploading constantly, my videos were getting like 8K views on average. Unless it was like a book review, then it would be like 500. But there's no world in which a Voros Twins interview should be getting less views than a review of like Dark Tower Book 3 or something. So I had a professional analyst look at it and I was like, why is this underperforming? He said, well, because the YouTube algorithm forgot you existed because you haven't uploaded where you used to upload 4 videos a day for a year straight. You've uploaded nothing for a year. So now it's like you're starting from ground level again. So I very much would appreciate any support checking out Luke and Friends at youtube.com/Luke Paron, or just going to the YouTube search bar, Luke space Paron. My website, if you guys want to check out my photography, is paronmedia.com. My Twitter is where you're going to see a lot of my impact related stuff. Basically exclusively me posting about wrestling, and occasionally I'll voice my opinion on a book or a movie or some sort of current political take. But that's Luke V Paron on Twitter, then Luke_Paron on Instagram. Stay up to date with my photos. I really don't post on Instagram as much as I should, but I'm trying to get back into it because I actually have good impact stuff to post nowadays. But yeah, and if you guys are into wrestling, we got a ton of great wrestlers coming on the Luke and Friends podcast. Mike Bailey, Impact Wrestling superstar, banned from the States for 5 years and then exploded on the scene once their ban was lifted. We got Aiden Prince, Kobe Durst, Ontario royalty in the indie scenes, Bhupinder Gujjar. And then for my TikTok fans out there, we got the Voros Twins, also Grace Smith, great TikToker, and also happens to live down the street from me, which is that's the one who I know, who I did no work to get to know them because we had classes together in high school. They happened to get famous, and I was like, I would love to have you on the show. So, and if you like music, we got Cody Bowles. Crownlands is touring with Greta Van Fleet coming up. That's going to be insane. So the release for that interview should coincide with the tour for that, which is really exciting. If you guys haven't listened to Crownlands, give them a listen. Insane prog rock duo, Rush meets Led Zeppelin. So they are just the best. So yeah, you guys know my name, Luke Paron. You can find me anywhere where socials are existing. But yeah, thanks for checking out and listening to me ramble today, folks. I really appreciate it.
Thanks so much, man.
All right, folks, there you have it. My chat with my old buddy, Luke Paron. And what a fantastic chat that it was. And thank you guys for staying tuned for the whole thing up into this outro here, because let me tell you, there was not a second of that conversation that I could have cut, because I think the overall story of what Luke was saying needed to be told, and just, I really, really love episodes like that. Hope you hit that subscribe button, leave a like, check out Luke Paron, check out the Patreon, check out everyone who supports this podcast, check out the Discord. We have fun over there. I'm actually going to jump on there right now after I'm done this to do a live stream. So I'm going to go do that, and I will catch you next time on The Hottest Show. Take it easy, guys.